The harsh truth is this: most people are not living, they're merely existing. They're caught in routines that were handed to them, beliefs they never questioned, and habits that were built by accident, not by design. And this is the great trap, the 97% trap. It's the trap of waiting, waiting for the weekend, waiting for the paycheck, waiting for permission, waiting for something to change externally while refusing to change internally. But nothing changes until you change. Nothing moves until you move. Most people never really make a decision. They think they do. They talk like they do. They plan as if they do. But they don't, because a true decision is followed by action. A real decision is backed by sacrifice, risk, and relentless commitment. The average person says, "I want to be wealthy," but their actions are chained to the habits of poverty. They say, "I want to be happy," but their environment is soaked in negativity and low standards. The tragedy is not in failing. Failure is a part of growth. The real tragedy is never deciding to rise, never crossing the line in the sand and saying, "That's it, no more, I'm changing." The 97% choose comfort. They settle for what's familiar. They take the path of least resistance, and they end up with lives of least fulfillment. They trade their dreams for security, their passion for predictability. Why? Because it's easier. It's easier to fit in than to stand out. It's easier to agree with the crowd than to challenge the status quo. It's easier to complain than to confront. But easy is not where greatness lies. Easy never changed the world. Easy never built a legacy. People don't realize that indecision is still a decision. Choosing to wait, to delay, to postpone your dream, that is a choice, and it comes at a cost. The cost is years. It's potential, it's regret. The 97% think they have time. They think next year will be better without becoming better. They believe their future will be different while they remain the same. That's not just delusion, it's self-betrayal. Because deep down we all know. We all feel it when we're not living up to our potential. We know when we're avoiding responsibility. We can sense when we've traded action for excuse, and let's be clear, this trap isn't always obvious. It's not always dramatic. Sometimes it shows up as good enough, a decent job, a comfortable routine, a life that looks fine on the outside but feels hollow on the inside. It shows up in conversations where dreams are mocked and mediocrity is celebrated. It shows up in the subtle, daily compromises, hitting snooze one more time, skipping that book, avoiding that decision. These aren't just small moments, they're directions. Every choice is a vote for the kind of person you want to become. And the 97% cast their votes for average every single day without realizing it. You see, the gap between the 97% and the 3% is not talent. It's not intelligence, it's not luck, it's decision. The 3% made a decision, and they meant it. They decided that they would no longer wait for life to happen to them. They would create it, they would shape it, they would own it. They decided that excuses were no longer acceptable. That fear would no longer be the driver, that limitations, real or imagined, would no longer define the ceiling of their lives. They decided to take control, and that changed everything. You'll never escape the 97% by following their patterns. You won't change your life while keeping their habits. You can't rise to your potential while living on their timelines. You must wake up and make a decision. a real one, a decision backed by change, a decision that alters how you spend your time, how you think, what you listen to, and who you surround yourself with. A decision that doesn't wait for the perfect moment, because the perfect moment never comes. It's now or never. Most people never understand that power is available the moment you choose it. You don't need permission to start. You don't need approval to change. You just need courage. Courage to leave behind the average. Courage to become the outlier. Courage to walk away from the 97%, because until you do, your life will continue to mirror theirs, comfortable, quiet, predictable, and unfulfilled. There comes a moment in every person's life when they are faced with a choice, not between good and evil, not between right and wrong, but between average and exceptional. That decision is rarely loud. It doesn't come with a trumpet or a banner. It comes in quiet moments, in late night thoughts, in early morning realizations. It comes when you look around and realize that the people, the routines, the conversations, and the habits you've been surrounded by are not building you. They are draining you. And in that moment, you must walk away. Walking away is one of the most powerful things a person can do, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Growth requires distance. If you stay in the same energy, you'll produce the same results. The crowd loves to keep you comfortable. The crowd wants you to blend in. The crowd hates change because change exposes their lack of movement. And when you start to walk differently, think differently, act differently, they'll question you, they'll try to pull you back. They'll call it arrogance. They'll say you've changed, and you have. Because you've realized that where you're going requires a new version of you, and the old environment cannot support that transformation. Most people are afraid to walk away. They fear being alone. They fear losing relationships. They fear the unknown. But the truth is, you can't rise and remain in the same space that kept you small. You can't level up surrounded by the same conversations that fed your excuses. You can't claim a new future with the same tired mindset. There is a cost to growth, and part of that cost is leaving behind what is no longer aligned. And yes, that might include people. That might include friends who once supported you, but now resent your ambition. That might include family members who don't understand your hunger for more. That might even include your old self, the version of you that tolerated mediocrity, settled for less, and feared standing out. There is great strength in letting go. It's not weakness, it's clarity. When you walk away, you're not rejecting people, you're choosing purpose. You're not abandoning others, you're responding to your calling. You're not trying to be better than them, you're simply refusing to be pulled into the patterns that lead to regret. The world has conditioned us to believe that loyalty means staying stuck, that humility means playing small, that love means never leaving. But true loyalty is to your destiny. True humility is owning your potential. True love is honoring your future enough to protect it from anything that compromises it. You see, walking away isn't about drama, it's about direction. It's about choosing peace over chaos, discipline over distraction, focus over noise. And when you walk away from what no longer serves you, you create space for what will. You create room for new ideas, new influences, new mentors, and new opportunities. Most people never receive what they desire because they're too full of what they should have released. You can't receive abundance while holding on to lack. You can't embrace progress while gripping the past. The power is in the release, and don't be fooled. Walking away doesn't mean the path is smooth. It doesn't mean you won't feel lonely. It doesn't mean doubts won't whisper. But those moments are not signs to turn back. They are signs that you are moving forward. Growth is always uncomfortable. Change is always met with resistance. But discomfort is not danger, it's development. It's the evidence that you've stepped outside the 97% and into the zone of creation, into the space where the few reside. The 3%, the builders, the thinkers, the leaders, the ones who had the courage to walk away not because it was convenient, but because it was right. You'll be surprised how many things try to cling to you when you decide to change. Old habits, limiting beliefs, toxic patterns, they'll all show up one last time, asking if you really meant it. That's the test, that's the threshold. You don't pass it with words. You pass it with action, with consistency. With silence, because walking away doesn't always mean slamming doors or cutting ties. Sometimes it's simply saying less and doing more. Creating instead of complaining, building instead of blaming, evolving instead of explaining. And here's the truth that few will tell you. Some people only love the version of you that needs saving. The moment you no longer need them to feel important, they'll feel threatened. The moment you grow beyond their understanding, they'll start to question your authenticity. Let them. You don't owe anyone an apology for changing. You don't owe the past your future. You don't have to carry the weight of other people's expectations. Walking away is not rebellion, it's maturity. It's the recognition that your life has value, and that value must be protected at all costs. Most people wait for something outside of them to change. The job, the market, the timing, but the successful ones, they create change by making hard decisions. And one of the hardest, most liberating decisions you'll ever make is this: to walk away from what is no longer worthy of your energy, your time, or your vision. There's a reason only a small percentage of people ever break through to real wealth, real purpose, and real fulfillment. It's not because they were born into success. It's not because they got lucky. And it's certainly not because life handed them an easy path. It's because they made a conscious decision to develop a mindset radically different from the masses. The 3% think differently, they move differently, they respond to challenges, setbacks, and even failure from a position of personal responsibility, not helplessness. They do not wait for a perfect day, a perfect economy, or a perfect upbringing. They simply choose to show up, consistently, intentionally, and with a fire that doesn't need external fuel. The average person is reactive. They let the world shape them. They wait for motivation. They wait for clarity. They wait for someone to push them. But the 3% have already made up their minds. They've decided that waiting is no longer a strategy. They've decided that success is not some distant fantasy. It's a daily practice, a disciplined pursuit, and a personal commitment. Discipline is the foundation. It's waking up early when your bed feels warm. It's doing the work when no one claps for you. It's choosing long-term growth over short-term gratification. Discipline means choosing your values over your emotions. And this isn't something you're born with, it's something you build through repetition, through structure, and through an unshakable sense of purpose. But discipline without vision is just routine. That's why the 3% don't just work hard, they work smart, and they work with intention. They have a vision so clear that distractions become irrelevant. The reason most people fall off is not because they lack drive, but because they lack direction. They don't know what they're aiming at, so they settle for whatever shows up. The 3% operate differently. They don't chase every shiny opportunity. They say no more often than they say yes. They're not impressed by busyness, they're focused on effectiveness. Vision allows them to see beyond today's problems. It gives them the courage to endure temporary losses for permanent gains. They understand that not every day will feel good, but every day has the power to move them closer to their future if they stay locked into their vision. And the final trait that sets the 3% apart is ownership. Radical, unapologetic ownership. They own their wins and they own their mistakes. They don't blame their parents, the system, the economy, or the government. They take full responsibility for where they are and where they're going. That's why they grow so fast. When you own it, you can change it. When you accept that you are the common denominator in every area of your life, you regain your power. You stop playing the victim and start becoming the architect. Ownership means you stop making excuses and start making decisions. It means you stop outsourcing your future to luck and start investing in yourself with intention. Most people avoid ownership because it's uncomfortable. It's easier to say, "I can't because of them." It's easier to point fingers than to look in the mirror. But the 3% know that every excuse, every complaint, every deflection is a leak in their energy, their time, and their results. They fix the leaks, they face the truth, they audit themselves without self-pity, because only when you face what's real can you create what's possible. And while the 97% look for comfort, the 3% are looking for clarity, growth, and transformation. They understand that the process won't always feel good, but they do it anyway. They do it because they understand cause and effect. They know that if they master their mornings, they'll win their days. If they control their mindset, they'll control their outcomes. If they protect their energy, they'll protect their momentum. They build habits that serve them instead of hoping for a better future while living in contradiction. The 3% are not special. They've just made different choices. They've chosen responsibility over blame, discipline over laziness, purpose over distraction, and ownership over entitlement. You don't need to be perfect to join the 3%. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to decide. Decide that you're done waiting. Decide that your future matters more than your comfort. Decide that your goals are non-negotiable. And once you make that decision, back it with action, not once, not twice, but daily, because this mindset isn't built in one moment of motivation. It's built in countless moments of commitment. Commitment to your routines, commitment to your standards, commitment to thinking like the 3% even when everything around you tells you to quit. We live in an age where information is everywhere. It's on our phones, in our feeds, in books, podcasts, videos, and seminars. There's no shortage of strategies, tools, or ideas about how to win, succeed, or improve. You can Google your way to anything now. But here's the truth that separates the 3% from the 97% information is not transformation. Knowledge is not power unless it's applied. Most people are drowning in information and starving for action. They know what they should be doing, they talk about it, they dream about it, but they never make the shift. They never step out of the cycle of knowing into the path of becoming. The 97% gather ideas like trophies but never use them. They attend events, take notes, underline quotes, and get fired up for a day or two. But then life kicks back in and the energy fades. The motivation fades, and because they never turned that knowledge into behavior, they fall right back into old patterns. They confuse stimulation with growth. They think because something sounds good, feels good, or makes sense intellectually, it's already a part of them. But the gap between knowing and doing is where most people's dreams go to die. They learn, but they don't apply. They agree, but they don't act. They understand, but they don't transform. Real change doesn't happen when you hear something. It happens when you do something with what you heard. The 3% understand this. They don't just take notes, they take action. They don't just listen, they implement. They don't just highlight quotes, they live by them. They understand that transformation is a process, not an event. It's not about the hype of the moment. It's about the habits that follow. They build systems, not just moods. They prioritize consistency over intensity because they know it's not what you learn that changes your life. It's what you repeat. The average person gets inspired and then stops. They think the feeling is enough, but inspiration is only the spark. You need structure to build the fire. You need accountability to sustain the flame. You need action to create results. Information without execution leads to frustration, because now you know better, but your life doesn't reflect it. You see other people doing what you know you could do. You hear messages that hit you in the heart but never make it to your schedule. You understand the blueprint but never pour the foundation. That dissonance eats at you because deep down you realize the only thing in your way is you. The 3% have made peace with this truth. They know that growth is uncomfortable. They don't seek out the next big secret. They master the basics and repeat them relentlessly. They know that success isn't about learning more, it's about doing more with what they've already learned. They are less impressed by quantity of knowledge and more focused on quality of action. They don't chase the next podcast or motivational clip to feel good. They ask themselves, what am I doing with what I already know? They take full responsibility for applying wisdom, not just acquiring it. There's a reason why some people with less knowledge outperform those with more, because action beats theory. Discipline beats intelligence. Consistency beats talent. You can read all the books, memorize all the quotes, and still be broke, confused, and stuck if you don't execute. Execution is what builds momentum. Execution is what builds confidence. Execution is what separates those who wish from those who win. The 3% are not sitting around debating which system is better. They're working the system they chose. They're not waiting to feel ready. They're doing it scared, unsure, and unpolished, but they're doing it. That's what counts. You have to understand that knowledge is not transformation until it touches your behavior, until it alters your schedule, until it rewrites your routine, until it makes you uncomfortable, until it requires sacrifice, until it shapes your identity. It's not what you say you believe, it's what your daily habits reveal. You don't become successful by knowing more. You become successful by doing what others won't, by doing what you said you would even after the feeling is gone, by mastering repetition, by choosing action over analysis. Most people live in information loops. They keep searching for the next tip, the next trick, the next hack. But they never stop long enough to apply what they already have. They're addicted to the learning high but allergic to the labor. They love strategy but avoid struggle. The 3% embrace the grind. They know that transformation requires more than notes. It requires new decisions, new priorities, and new standards. They don't just want to be informed, they want to be reformed, rebuilt, reshaped. That means applying what they know even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Transformation is a matter of doing what is required, not what is comfortable. It's not a moment of clarity, it's a season of discipline. It's not about hearing something new. It's about becoming someone new. The difference between the 97% and the 3% is never information. It's what they do with it when no one is watching. What you do daily is what determines who you become. It's not the big moments that shape your destiny. It's the quiet routines, the small decisions, the things you do when nobody's clapping, watching, or congratulating. That's where the real shift happens. The 3% understand this at a level that most people overlook. They've come to realize that success isn't a mystery, it's a pattern. It's a collection of deliberate habits that, repeated over time, lead to unstoppable momentum. The difference between them and the 97% isn't luck, education, or talent. It's in the rituals that shape their identity and the disciplines that they refuse to compromise on. The 97% wake up and react to life. They let the day control them. They check their phone first thing in the morning, get caught up in other people's priorities, and move through life without direction. Their habits are based on survival, not growth, but the 3% operate differently. They design their day before it begins. They guard their mornings because they know the first hour sets the tone for the next 23. They don't leave their focus to chance. They don't wait to feel inspired. They understand that structure drives clarity, and that clarity drives action. That's why their routines look so intentional, because they are. The 3% don't rely on motivation, they rely on systems. They know that motivation comes and goes, but systems keep moving regardless of how you feel. They automate discipline. They build non-negotiable habits around their priorities. Whether it's working on their body, mind, business, or relationships, they schedule what matters. And if it's not scheduled, it's not real. This level of intentionality is what sets them apart. They don't live by emotion, they live by values. Their days are governed by purpose, not pressure. They've replaced reactive habits with proactive rituals, and that shift has changed everything. One of the most defining habits of the 3% is consistency. They don't try something for a week and give up. They stick with it long after the novelty has worn off. They don't need excitement to keep going. They've built endurance. They understand that average people look for hacks, but high performers look for mastery, and mastery only comes through repetition. They practice the fundamentals daily. They read, journal, plan, reflect, execute, and they do it again the next day. This creates compound growth that the 97% never experience because they stop too soon. The 3% don't stop. They evolve through the work. Another key habit is self-auditing. While most people drift through life without questioning their choices, the 3% constantly evaluate. They ask, is this serving my future? Is this aligned with my purpose? Is this how the best version of me would act? They review their habits, track their behavior, analyze their results, and make adjustments. They don't lie to themselves. They don't excuse failure or ignore patterns. They own their process. This radical honesty forces growth. They know that if you want next-level results, you need next-level self-awareness, and that awareness doesn't come from hoping, it comes from habit. The 3% also surround themselves with accountability. They know that success is a team sport, while the 97% hide behind independence and ego. The top 3% seek out mentors, coaches, communities, and environments that stretch them. They don't want to be the smartest or most successful person in the room. They want to be challenged. They crave feedback. They seek truth over comfort. That's why their habits don't just exist in isolation. They're reinforced by their circle. They understand that your environment either sharpens you or softens you, so they create surroundings that align with their standards. One of the most powerful habits they've built is choosing to act in alignment with their identity. They don't just do things, they ask, who am I becoming by doing this? Every habit, every decision, every routine is a vote for the person they've decided to become. They act like the person they want to be before they feel like it. That's the secret. The 97% wait to feel confident before they act. The 3% act until confidence becomes natural. They understand that action comes first and identity follows. This identity-driven behavior becomes the foundation for every other habit in their life. They have mastered the art of energy management. The average person chases productivity. The 3% manage energy. They know that without energy, discipline dies. Without energy, focus fades. So they protect their health, guard their mindset, and cut out energy, draining habits like gossip, junk food, late nights, and pointless scrolling. They meditate, train, rest, recover, and optimize, because they know that longevity matters more than intensity. Anyone can sprint, but success is a marathon. The 3% don't just work hard, they recover hard too. They also make reflection a habit. While the masses rush from one task to the next, the top performers pause. They ask, what worked, what didn't, what can I improve? This practice of reflection keeps them aligned, grounded, and focused. It's how they avoid drifting. It's how they recalibrate. Reflection makes their execution sharper and their growth faster. They understand that unreviewed days become wasted days, and they refuse to waste time. Ultimately, the habits that separate the 3% from the 97% are built not for comfort, but for purpose. They are repeated disciplines that serve a long-term vision. They are not driven by trends. They are rooted in principles. And the best part is this: these habits are available to anyone. They're not locked behind status, money, or privilege. They're built through decision, repetition, and the relentless pursuit of becoming better. The choice to walk away from the 97% is not an act of arrogance. It's an act of responsibility. It's the moment you decide that average is no longer acceptable and that your life demands more than comfort, excuses, or distractions. The truth is, most people settle. They follow the crowd, live in reaction, and chase external validation while ignoring their internal potential. But you don't have to be most people. You don't have to live like the 97%. You can think differently, move differently, and build a life that reflects intention instead of imitation. The moment you begin to adopt the 3% mindset, choosing discipline over emotion, vision over confusion, and ownership over blame, you begin to shift your entire direction. Doesn't and come every from Oru infopilunity DECLINED alone, but from bold, uncomfortable, repeated action. You understand that habits shape your destiny more than any single decision ever could. You begin to see that motivation fades, but systems remain. That clarity isn't found, it's created. That success isn't about waiting for the right time, but deciding that now is the only time you have. And when you truly live in this awareness, you stop being a spectator and start being the builder. Your morning rituals, your circle, your self-audits, and your choices all begin to align. You break out of survival mode and step into a life designed for significance, growth, and fulfillment. Because in the end, the separation between the 97% and the 3% is not talent. It's not opportunity. It's mindset. It's ownership. It's the willingness to do what others won't, for a future others will never see.